Hello folks, now we've got a tutorial for you today and I hope it's going to be one which is quite useful. It's actually a subject we covered quite a long time ago. Actually my predecessor at BitTech did. It's an article though, we haven't got a proper video, so I thought it'd be a good idea to cover glass etching. So obviously there are lots of different ways to etch glass. You can laser etch it, have it done professionally elsewhere, or if you have a laser cutter yourself, you probably already know that then. Alternatively, you can have something glass beaded or sand blasted. You can use that with a stencil and that kind of work to be able to do interesting work with that as well, which has a really matte finish. Laser etching can sometimes leave little sort of raster lines, so you get a really good finish with the glass blasting and sand blasting. The only problem is not many people have one of those units at home or have an air compressor to be able to power one even if they did, so you end up having to take it somewhere else. But there is a way to do it at home very easily, and it's something which is very appropriate if you're only going to be doing small jobs. So maybe you want to have like a logo or a little phrase maybe put onto your PC. You just want to have some detailing work, or maybe you're working with a small component such as a glass reservoir, since they're very common nowadays. Maybe you want to put a pattern around the outside of the tube, or even if you're using glass tubing and you're adventurous and you want to do something with that. So a good way to get around this is to use this stuff, which is glass etching cream. So basically what this does is it chemical etches the surface of the glass and leaves you with quite a nice matte finish. And the way you can get lots of different designs is by making a stencil. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We have ourselves a tempered glass panel, and we also have a bunch of vinyl that we're going to be making a stencil from. So good thing about stencils is that you can make them by hand with a craft knife. The problem though is trying to make complicated ones that method is incredibly difficult. So especially if you've got maybe small text, trying to cut out letters that are only sort of 7 to 10 millimeters tall with a little craft knife is doable, but it's incredibly time intensive and it is quite difficult. And of course, if you make a mistake like a portion of the way through, you sort of have to start all the way from the beginning again, which is not very much fun. So what I'm going to be using is this thing, which is a vinyl plotter. So this is the one that I've had for quite a few years now. So this is a Silhouette Cameo 2. It's sort of a mid-range vinyl plotter, and it's more than capable for doing the sort of work that I do on a regular basis. So I use this for making stencils quite often, not so much for glass etching, but I do it a lot for airbrush work. If I want to add text to the outside of a mod that I'm painting, then this is a really good way of doing that. Also, you can make stickers to place on details like memory and motherboards. You're going to be adding text or like little accent lines, which are very fiddly. And it's especially good if you need to cut rounded objects like circles, which are very difficult to do freehand. So that one I actually use quite a lot, and I think they're really good pieces of kit to have. So basically what we're going to be going through is how to make the stencil. So I'm going to briefly show how I'm going to be doing it on the plotter. Of course, you could always just do it by hand, as I mentioned. And then we're going to be showing you how to apply the cream onto a panel and basically showing you the kind of results that you're going to be getting. Now, the thing is, it is worth mentioning that this cream isn't really worth using if you're going to be doing a very large panel. So you won't get a perfectly even finish. So you really want to just use this for small things. And also it's quite dangerous with the vapors and all of that. So you're better off just using it for small items anyway. So first things first, we need to make our stencil. So we're going to be doing the BitTech logo on the side of our panel, and I've already got one of those drawn up in Illustrator already, and I basically imported it into the Silhouette Studio to do all the line work, and I've saved that onto a USB stick. Good thing about these plotters is that most of them can be used offline. I usually have mine connected to my computer anyway, just because I don't tend to do really long jobs, so it's quite nice being able to just go back and forth very quickly. But since we're in the workshop, we may as well just use that. There we go. So this is just a matter of using load media and then finding the file on top of the USB. And then cutting settings, I'm going to be using the sort of basic ones for vinyl, and I'm going to turn the speed down a little bit because I've got some small fiddly areas, so I'm going to go to speed 5. And thickness is quite thin, so let's go to 7. Blade, we're going to go 3. So next up we're going to be using our vinyl, and this is just a basic black vinyl I got on Amazon. I find actually the basic ones tend to work fairly well because some of the other ones, as they get more expensive, they're more designed for sort of wrapping cars and objects, and so they have little channels built into them specifically to allow air to escape. But of course, when you're doing a stencil, you don't really want any channels underneath because you don't want anything to leak. So actually the cheaper stuff tends to work quite well. You just need to be aware that because it's much thinner, it can be a little bit more fiddly. So finally we're done with removing all those little bits and pieces, but we need to get it from the sheet onto the panel itself. So to do that, I'm going to be using this stuff, which is transfer paper. So it's basically like sticky back plastic. You roll it over the top of your vinyl sticker, and then you gently peel it, and it keeps all the pieces in place. And then you take it over, put it onto the panel you're going to be applying it to, and then you just gently peel it off, which should leave everything in place. If anything does move, you can always just kind of reposition it yourself manually. Right, with our stencil now applied, we can just go ahead and use the etching cream and go over the top. Now notice I'm wearing gloves for this because this is quite a corrosive material. You don't want to breathe it, you don't want to put it on your skin or anything. So yeah, just be sensible, wear gloves, and if you're going to be using a lot of it or in an enclosed space, make sure you use a mask as well. Now the amazing thing is that really is all there is to it. We just needed to wash it off after 5 minutes, stirring a couple times in between as I mentioned, and you get a really lovely frosted finish. So I'm very happy with how the logo came out on this one. We've got some really crisp edges, especially on the little small ones and noughts. I thought maybe those would have some issues, maybe with the stencil not quite sticking as much, but actually they were completely fine. So it came out really, really crisp. So this is obviously one of the best things about this particular technique, is that it doesn't really use any tools at all. All we used is the cream and then washed it off afterwards with the cloth. You don't have to use a vinyl plotter like I did to make the stencil itself. You could maybe buy a pre-made one on the internet, source a different pattern from something else. There's loads of different possibilities. You could even make your own by hand, especially if it's a simpler one. If you're doing a more geometric pattern, then it's very, very doable to be able to do that yourself. And of course you can still apply this technique, as I mentioned earlier, to other parts such as glass reservoirs. You've obviously got panels, tubing and all sorts. So I'm really excited to see what you guys can come up with. Well, I hope you found that handy. Of course, if you did like this tutorial, we've got plenty more on the channel, plus many more coming up, along with build videos, modding logs, full-on projects, product reviews, the lot. So make sure to subscribe because you don't want to miss any of it. Also, you can go and find us over on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, builds.gg, and of course Discord. I'll catch you next time, folks.